Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. We are coming to you live today from the KAUST Winter Enrichment Program. My name is Mohammed Abdel-Al. I'm the Director of Digital Experience and Innovation here at KAUST. I have the pleasure today of introducing our next speaker. I've known Osama for several years now, and I'm excited to hear his talk today. I can guarantee you, you're going to get excited about what he says today, so prepare your questions at the end of the talk. Osama Zorbi is the Chief Technology Officer of Cisco Middle East and Africa. He joined Cisco in 2001. A key focus area under his leadership is the development and execution of technical strategies of digital transformation for the Middle East and Africa region. He works closely with government agencies, enterprise customers, private sector, and partners across the region. His focus is on developing business and technology architecture to deliver on priorities and partnerships in the area and the region. Osama has a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Engineering from the University of Illinois, Chicago, and a Master's degree in Computer Science from Illinois Institute of Technology. So with that said, we welcome Osama, and we want to thank you and Cisco team for your close partnership and sponsorship of WEP. For those of you that don't know, Cisco has been a partner of KAUST in our own connectivity journey from day one in 2009. So we really welcome Osama here and would love to hear your talk today. Osama, I'll turn it over to you, and if you want to share your screens.
Mohammed, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It is indeed my great pleasure and honor to be with you here today. Part of that introduction, Mohammed, you mentioned that we have been working together for a while. Indeed, it has been a while, and thank you so much for hosting me here today. I have started with Cisco in 2001. And would you believe it if I told you that back then, there was just around 360 million internet users? Can you imagine that today we have over 4.5 billion internet users? Without a doubt, we are embarking on a dawn of a new era, the era of the digital transformation, the era of the fourth industrial revolution. I am honored to be part of the Winter Enrichment Program of KAUST. This is very interesting. I have looked at the speakers and the content. It is unbelievably amazing, and it is in line with what is really happening and what is driving transformation globally. My talk today is going to be focused on an area that is extremely critical, and it is part of many of the discussion at all levels in government and in private sector. Today, there isn't a talk that is being discussing technology without talking about security and privacy. But before I start my talk, let's actually look about how we got here. First of all, as many of you know and noticed, we are experiencing the highest rate of change in human history. And that has been accelerated over the past few years. That rate of change is being accelerated and fueled by many technology trends. Artificial intelligence, as I call it, the mother of all trends, that's fueled by the massive compute capability. And KAUST has one of the biggest and largest and fastest supercomputers in the globe. So the artificial intelligence mother of all trends is fueled by the availability and the speed of the compute, but on the other hand, the explosion and the availability of data. It is also the rate of change that I am talking about is fueled by many of those technologies, whether we talk about blockchain, Wi-Fi 6, 5G on the connectivity. The theme of the talk that we are talking about is connectivity. The move into the cloud, the IoT, blockchain, virtual reality, augmented reality, digital twin, you name it. It's actually all of those trends are fueling the rate of change. A rate of change that is disrupting and has disrupted every single industry. There isn't an industry that we talk about or we are interacting with that has not been disrupted by the rate of change that I am talking about. A rate of change that it's actually just in the last 2 years, we have created more than 90% of the world's data. If we look at how today we are conducting our livelihood, how we are interacting, how we are learning and consuming services, every single thing has been disrupted with technology. But let's pause for a second. That was what was going on all the way until the end of 2019. And then towards the end of 2019, the world was hit with the unfortunate pandemic of COVID-19. And that has really changed everything as we know it. We thought we were going at speed, yet COVID-19, the unfortunate pandemic, really forced everyone to move from an accelerated speed to an exponential speed. Just to put things in perspective, a survey that we have conducted showed that more than 81% of respondents to the survey said that COVID-19 has created the biggest technology pressures, to a point where organizations overnight found themselves have to go from 0 remote workers to nearly more than 90% of their workers working remotely. 74% stated that all the digital transformation projects that they were actually in discussion or on hold has been approved within weeks or even potentially days. And 71% have stated that some of those projects that used to take months and years to implement have been implemented again in a matter of weeks. That's, ladies and gentlemen, and team and students and prospective colleagues, that's the rate of change that we are talking about. Now, this, no doubt, have created, from one hand, massive pressure and challenge. From the other hand, has created tremendous opportunity. When we look at some of those trends that have been accelerated, is really primarily about the work from home capability, but we have seen also massive focus on the individual, whether that individual is a worker within an organization or whether that individual is a consumer of services. And that consumer can be the patient in a hospital or a student in a university or a consumer in retail, etc. So if we look at what really was happening all the way over the past, I would say, decade, that has really been almost negligible compared to what happened over the past year due to the changes that we have seen in the market. Now, as you can imagine, this has created tremendous pressure on the IT department. And now, as I mentioned, all of the changes that we were dealing with, we thought we got good handle of it. Yet, COVID-19 really was a game changer in terms of all IT have to really recalculate and reassess and redefine the way that they interact. And therefore, what we are seeing today is that more than 80% in IT departments today are being compensated and evaluated based on business outcome in light of all the different challenges that we spoke about. I'm moving fast into the introduction because I want to get into the core of the presentation around cybersecurity. Now, what we at Cisco are doing about that, we really realize that technology plays a very critical role in everything that we spoke about in terms of the transformation. And therefore, we believe that we need technology to work for us. We want technology to really be on our side and technology be implemented in the most simplified and easiest way to allow for organizations, for companies, and for different government sector to do what they do best and let technology be the enablers. So what's our philosophy around this? It's really very simple. Allowing any user using any device connected to any network any point in time reaching any application, regardless of where that application is, securely and efficiently. Now, this statement really sounds extremely great and wonderful, and it also sounds easy, but it's really beyond anything but easy, I would say. It's unbelievably complex, and it is very difficult. So let me repeat that once again. So our philosophy around how do we go about addressing the challenges that I stated, which we have been dealing for quite some time with, and COVID-19 has actually accelerated that quite a bit. What are we doing about that? Is really the philosophy we have is to enable any user using any device connected to any network on any time, reaching any application anywhere, whether it's on a private data center or in a cloud, to reach that securely and efficiently. And that's really what we call the multi-domain architecture. Our multi-domain architecture philosophy has 4 pillars. The one that I am going to focus greatly about in my talk today is really about securing the data for the new digital era, or the dawn of the digital era that I spoke about in my introduction. But let me just briefly touch on the other pillars. Reimagining the application. One of the things that we have been seeing actually over the past few years is really a trend that we call the multi-cloud trend. Now, you can imagine that many people use many different terminology. Move to the cloud, the migration to the cloud, application on the cloud, cloud-centric application, et cetera, et cetera. The way that we see it really is we see that a world evolving to be a multi-cloud. And what do we mean by this? We mean that many organizations will implement private cloud. However, they will probably also be utilizing and capitalizing on some public cloud or services from the public cloud. Then they potentially will be consuming certain applications on the cloud, and that would be software as a service or application as a service, and then potentially building a hybrid cloud model. So the world of the cloud is actually evolving. And therefore, if I was to just focus on the application, now historically, if we just take a step back and look at a decade ago, every organization had full control in every single application they use, where those applications were not only implemented within a fully controlled data center, some of those applications even themselves were built and customized by those organizations. However, today the world is anything but that. Maybe there are some legacy applications, and there are some of those that are either A, built by the organization, or B, are being controlled by the organization. But the reality is, majority of those applications are now all over the place. Some of them are within private, fully controlled data center, but others are everywhere, as I mentioned. And therefore, reimagining the application and how can we take full control over that application, and more importantly, how do we provide the security end-to-end is extremely critical. I want to get back to the transformation of the infrastructure because that's very, very important, and I'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But let me talk about the empowering of the team. We've been talking about empowering of the team and the ability of every organization to provide the right tools and the right capability to every individuals so that they can conduct their daily lives easily, and to provide them with the tools that enhance and accelerate their productivity to the maximum. Empowering the team is really key, and we have seen how, because the environment of the office has been disrupted due to COVID-19, now many of the organizations have realized that those tools are extremely essential, not only to provide them to the user, but to make them available to the user anytime in any place. Let me give you our example at Cisco. So at Cisco, we actually have been using our technology for quite some time, and remote work is no foreign to us because we've been using it for some time, and most of us are always connected, hyper connected, I would say, all the time on the move, whether we are in the office, in the house, on the road, on the plane, in the airport, on the road, all over 360 and maybe even 720 in a spherical format, we are fully connected. When COVID-19 hit, our company took a decision back in March 2020 that our entire workforce will be working remotely. And we saw zero disruption to our business because we were already enabled with that. And therefore, I will close by this statement around empowering the team, building the right capability for every organization to provide the right tools and the right solutions for every users and every employee to be able to conduct their daily work and enhance their productivity. The third pillar that I want to talk about is around transforming the infrastructure. Today, we are talking about approximately, again, I say approximately carefully because, it depends on, we continue to evolve and grow. There is about 1 out of 2 of the world that's actually being connected. Recently, we have conducted a survey and we have issued a report. We called it the top world trends around what's happening in technology. And one of them, which really was apparent and really at the top of that, was connecting the unconnected, or what we call bridging the digital divide. Due to COVID-19, what we found ourselves in is those who were connected managed to conduct their livelihood easily. But unfortunately, those who were not connected, they did not have that opportunity. And therefore, one of the biggest transformers and really enablers globally today is how do we move to connect the unconnected and bridge the digital divide. In our report, we found out that if we manage to connect the unconnected, that's going to add to the economy approximately 6.7 trillion US dollars. And that will take about 500 million people out of poverty. Therefore, transforming the infrastructure and our ability to build the next generation internet that will allow for the connectivity, whether it's wired or wireless. And one of those biggest transformers, as I mentioned in the talk, is around 5G, Wi-Fi 6, and potentially even beyond. So the last pillar is about the security, which I will really dig deep into. As I mentioned, connecting the unconnected, and no doubt is the theme of this particular program is around connectivity. It is indeed, I would say, extremely reflective of the vision that this particular program has, where truly today, when we connect the unconnected, we create massive opportunity. We really unleash the opportunity. Can you imagine what we have done today with almost half of the world connected? As we move to connect to the second half, you can imagine what will happen. It is truly, really game changer. So today, when we look at the internet of the future, it's really we are dealing with the massively new reality. There is new norm, the way that we work, live, play, and learn, the way that today our even education has been disrupted. Most of my kids today are taking their education remotely. Also, the way that we interact in healthcare, the way even we deal with many different things. We consume services in terms of transportation and delivery, in terms of interaction and so on. Massive change and massive disruption in terms of how the world is connected. Having said all of that introduction, I was really leading to get into the security dilemma. Today, I can tell you that security is the biggest concern for every decision maker and business leader. Whether we talk to government officials or we talk to private sector, every single one of them is really very concerned about security. One of the studies that we have conducted, we found that in social engineering, 91% of those social engineering attacks are very successful. And as you know, that there is either spear phishing, social engineering attacks, or something that is extremely generic, which is reaching to everyone. And unfortunately, no matter what you do with security, always the human element plays probably the most critical role. And we'll talk maybe about that a little bit later as I discuss the potential solution. So if we look at phishing attacks in numbers, just to give perspective, why is it an unbelievably, extremely big concern to many decision makers and business leaders? Why is security extremely a very big concern? Let's take a look at that in numbers. on a daily basis, there is more than 3.4 billion scam emails that are being sent, and namely those are probably targeting to get hopefully a victim user that will click on some of those links, which ultimately will put tremendous pressure or create massive challenge for those. And maybe we can talk about that maybe a little bit later if anyone interested about what is happening around the world in terms of current landscape around those threats and so on. So we are talking about almost just in the first half of 2019, more than 4.1 billion records were exposed due to data breaches. I can really share on and on in terms of data and the amount of pressure that leaders have when it comes to cybersecurity, and all of those I think are extremely apparent and very evident to everyone who is in the industry. And I can tell you probably the last thing I will say about the challenges that are facing, again, all involved stakeholders is around the disruption that we spoke about. We spoke about really the explosion of the number of devices that are being connected. Historically, we, our offices were extremely controlled. So the office literally had perimeters that we can speak about. Users also were fully controlled, where devices were fully managed by IT, etc. Today, we are anything but that. The office is everywhere. There is no such thing as an office with a perimeter, because today I am speaking to you from my home office, and therefore that's the extension of our office. And if you take that and multiply by 1,000 of employees, that's where it is. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the transition to the cloud and or the application all over the place. Again, the users are being all over the place, and even equally to that is application being all over the place. And now we can take that and imagine the exponential complexity that's actually creating. Stating the obvious, distributed workforce and digital transformation. But then if we look at from a technology perspective, how can leaders and stakeholders defend against what they don't see? When you have limited visibility in the attacks and threats, you will have a major issue, and therefore you cannot defend against what you cannot see. But also today, depending on which statistics you look at, today the world is suffering of shortage with more than 1 to 3 million security experts that are required yet are not available. And again, when you look at the number of solutions that are available in the industry, it is really massive, and to deal with that, it's huge. So just to put that in perspective, there are more than 3,000 cybersecurity vendors, and you can imagine that it is the complexity, and 79% of the chief information security officers are saying it is extremely difficult to really orchestrate and integrate and to build a consistent unified solution. So having said that, so let me just now get into the details. So what are we doing about it? We really need a security solution that is able to deal with the new world with all of its complexity. But that's not enough. We need to let technology work for us at the speed and the scale that we require. And therefore, hopefully you remember, I stated that the mother of all trends is artificial intelligence. Can we employ artificial intelligence and automation coupled with best of breed and state-of-the-art solutions, coupled with best experts in the industry, all of that working cohesively as one single big engine together to address the cybersecurity dilemma? We at Cisco believe absolutely we can. If we manage to bring, number one, the right end-to-end security capability, where we are building a layered security and defense in depth, end-to-end, with best of breed and state-of-the-art technology. That's number one. Then we want to couple that with advanced artificial intelligence algorithm that based on local visibility as well as global visibility to give us really the right insight, but also the right correlation where we are able to eliminate the noise and really focus on the real threats. And then add to that the human intelligence capability with also best experts in the field. When we bring those components together, we believe we can bring adequate security to the level that the business as well as the speed that we require. And therefore, when we start looking at this, what we are doing is that in terms of, we believe if a device is connected, not only it needs to be secured, but we really believe that it must participate in security. We need to make sure that we are capitalizing on everything we know. So we look at global visibility. We have what we call Thales Group that provides really comprehensive threat intelligence. As I mentioned earlier, you saw some of that statistics where 3.4 billion spam email that are being sent every day. It's about all the different data and public data that's available and web usage and email and traffic that we see globally. Can we capitalize on that data to get the global visibility that we need in order for us to take that intelligence and protect against some of those threats? But then we couple that with the local visibility. So let me give you just a very quick example about how did we manage to use artificial intelligence so that we can solve some of the really big problems that were facing the industry for quite some time. As you know, the majority of traffic on the network, whether that is locally or publicly, whether it's privately or publicly, majority of that traffic is actually encrypted. Now, when the traffic is encrypted, the dilemma you have is that how do you really inspect that encrypted traffic? Well, the solution was, put maybe an intermediate device and then terminate that encryption and then inspect the traffic, then encrypt back and then send it. But then if you do that, basically you're fundamentally violating the basic premise of why you encrypt to begin with. And therefore, the second option is to leave it, and that's what majority of solutions were doing, which is leaving the encrypted traffic as is. However, the surge in terms of threats that are being encapsulated in encrypted traffic has been growing, right? And therefore, what we have done with artificial intelligence is we now started looking at inspecting encrypted traffic without decrypting it. And we have developed advanced artificial intelligence algorithm that allow us to really inspect traffic without decrypting it, without violating the concept of the privacy and the integrity of the data. And we were approximately around 91% accurate in terms of, or actually I'd say 93% accurate in terms of the accuracy to be able to say if this traffic is actually infected with malware and or threats, it is actually true. And therefore now, in summary, what I would say is that we at Cisco believe that there has to be really a new look, a redefined approach to cybersecurity to address and to really meet the requirement of the new world I described with the introduction. And therefore, our solutions really need to be layered security. So every point that the traffic passes through must be secured. If a device is connected, it needs to be secured. We really need to employ that. The point is, layered security in depth and defense in depth, and the ability to employ A, the best in breed solution, B, use automation and artificial intelligence, and then C, be using the best experts in the field, but also really build the ecosystem capability that will allow us to do that. That's, ladies and gentlemen, what we call the SecureX platform that's being introduced by Cisco, whether it's focused on the multi-factor authentication that is focused on identity. And again, going back, maybe I digress here a little bit. about the tech trends report that we have recently published is also talking about cybersecurity as a key element. One of those is around the focus on the individual, and probably we are experiencing a massive shift in a world with passwordless world, where the focus more on a biometric, whether it's that the fingerprint or the facial recognition or retina scan or what have you. And therefore, when we start looking at the constant threat intelligence coupled with the identity capability, where we are really providing cybersecurity across the board, at every point, every touch point, we're asking the question, who is trying to access what, at what point in time, from what device, on what network, and with what identity? When we are able to answer all of those questions, we are able to provide that capability. And SecureX Platform from Cisco is really looking at it from the application perspective. And again, regardless whether that application is on the cloud or on private network, and looking at the endpoints, couple that with the network, we believe every element must participate in a well-defined architecture that is end-to-end to deliver this capability is really the approach that is required to bring this capability and to deliver on the outcome of security. Again, really delivering the adequate security is what we are after. And this is really not a one-time solution. This is really not only to deliver this architecture and build it. This is a journey where this architecture must constantly be evolving and must constantly be capitalizing on the intelligence coupled with the automation based on advanced AI algorithm that allow us to always stay one step ahead of those bad or ill-doers, if you will. When we look at really to enable this, one of the things that we have done is not only the solution that provided from Cisco, because we really believe that the security dilemma is beyond just one organization. While we at Cisco deliver the architecture with the methodology that I spoke about, we really believe that this requires a collective effort from private and public organization. Hence, we are building alliances and partnership with other Cisco partners, but also with our customers, as well as with government and private agencies to deliver on the collective capability that we can bring to the table to deliver on that cybersecurity. But furthermore, we're opening the APIs, which I will talk about a little bit later, that allow for that capability and allow for the constant development and constant evolution of the solution, where we are all bringing this, the multi-layered innovation that will allow us to collectively contribute to the solution that we are talking about. Again, standard-based to allow for that continuous development all over the globe to deliver the SecureX platform that we aspire for, which will ultimately enable the exponential innovation that digital transformation will drive. From the application to the user, from the application to the user and everything in between, it really requires to provide the functional control on the application, north southbound, but also securing the ability to secure east west with all the different interaction between different applications and different element of the solution. And again, SecureX that is built on the identity of the individual, and as I mentioned earlier, the identity evolving to be passwordless and really more onto the biometric and the individual identity that we look for, enabling secure remote access. We're now really making the entire solution simple, but as I mentioned, is no matter where the user is. And I want to remind you of the message I introduced is any user, for example, today, myself, using any device, and today I can tell you probably if you were to look at my desk, you will see I have almost 6 different devices and all are connected to the network, by the way, whether I'm using a mobile or I'm using a laptop or I'm using a video unit or I'm using other devices, no matter what the device is, connected to any network, and in this case, whether I'm connected to 4G on my laptop or 5G, whether I am connected to wired network or in the office, and any user, myself, using any device, laptop or a phone, connected to any network, reaching any application at any point in time securely and effectively. That's really what we are after. And then if we look now, let's take a holistic look and let's take a full summary. Number one, we are going to be probably dealing with many different solutions, whether that, email security, web security, the cloud security, the device security, the advanced malware protection, the firewall, the IPS, and so on and so forth. So you're going to probably name a large number of different security solutions. The number one question is, we really need to bring the best of breed, and that's what we are trying to achieve, at Cisco, along with our partner. But number two, can we really bring them in a very, comprehensive, integrated way that nothing is falling, between the crack? But then, equally important, really using the automation layer that's built on advanced AI algorithm that will allow us to get that intelligence. But that intelligence, just getting the intelligence is not sufficient. We really need to get the intelligence in a timely manner that will allow us to, to take an action, and that's really key. So, in summary, it's an architecture that takes full advantage of solution, take full advantage of artificial intelligence, and then take full advantage of the human capability. Bringing that in a very comprehensive and integrated way is really key. Furthermore, and here's the point where I really want to invite you all to join us, we have taken this entire architecture and the entire solution portfolio, and we opened it using an innovation platform. As I mentioned earlier, we really believe that the security dilemma, but even beyond security, across all the solutions I described, whether it's security, empowering the teams, transformation of the infrastructure, or even the data center and the multi-cloud, all of those really require collective industry. So what have we done? We built what we called the innovation platform. This is now a platform that is approximately 8 years old, and we have more than 600,000 developers joining us on that platform. And that platform in which we are opening and inviting entrepreneurs and developers and innovators to join us to develop on that. And again, whether you choose to be part of the IoT, cloud, networking, data center, or security, or collaboration, or mobility, 5G, 6, Wi-Fi 6, and so on, you will be able to go there and start innovating and start developing and start research and development. DevNet platform is at developer.cisco.com. And actually, speaking to one of the prominent education institution in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, namely KAUST, we believe we have really great entrepreneurs. We have also great innovators, researchers, and individuals with great dreams and mindset around innovation. We believe that we can collectively create tremendous solution that deal with the complex of the world. We believe that this will enable us to unleash the possibility. There is no doubt that the world was moving at an accelerated speed. The unfortunate event of COVID-19 has even took that even to an exponential speed even further. Yet we human are very resilient to challenges, and therefore we are confronting that challenge head on. And we have really done tremendous work in terms of keeping the people connectivity. And we believe here in Saudi Arabia, we are very lucky to be living in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where the government have done a tremendous work when we compare it to the world in terms of how we use technology in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in order for us to deal with the challenges ahead of us. And that has, in terms of created really tremendous opportunity. So together, let us innovate, let us collaborate, and let us unleash new possibility. With that, thank you very much. And I hand over back to Mohammed.
Thank you, Osama, so much for this talk. Very exciting indeed, and also scary sometimes. We have a few questions, and let me start by telling you a little bit of my own story. Back when I was doing my own master's degree in computer engineering, I had a professor who looked at me and said, this was a class around system design and engineering. System, not in terms of computing, in terms of industrial systems. And I was the only computer guy in the class. And he looked at me and said, why can't you guys get your software written correctly once from the beginning and not put us into this situation? So obviously we're connecting more devices every day. We're adding more cars, watches at home, at school, and at the office. So we're increasing the potential for attacks. How do we, as individuals, as a father, as a citizen, how do I protect my own self? Would my bank accounts be at risk in the future? Would I see things that will compromise my way of life?
Yeah, thank you, Muhammad, for that, and thank you for sharing your story. It is indeed, you're absolutely right, and I think that's really the biggest dilemma. I shared some numbers, and thank you for shedding some light on that. Is the explosion of the number of devices, and that's expected to be in the tens of billions as we speak. It's exponentially growing. No doubt, more devices, more potential points of attack, and therefore more potential threats. Your question is that how do we protect against that? I can tell you, as I mentioned, always the human element is going to be the most important link. I don't want to call it the weakest link, but I will say the most important link. And therefore, number one, being vigilant, and number two, being aware. If it is suspicious, indeed it is suspicious. Do not be fooled by the titles. Do not be fooled by the pictures or the look of it. When you touch a device, you need to very suspicious. And I tell you that probably on a weekly basis, I receive messages from my friend, be careful, don't answer that because my X account was hacked, because people are hacking the accounts and then reaching out to all the network seeking money and so on and so forth. So honestly, I can tell you that number one, be vigilant, and number two is be aware. And then number three, obviously, you want to use technology to your advantage. Make sure that your devices are always up to date. Make sure that you are using the guidance and the guidelines from your IT department, because your IT department is spending tremendous amount of investment, tremendous amount of time to really secure you and secure your devices. So again, this is basically the summary: vigilant, awareness, make sure your device is up to date, and then finally using the recommendation from your IT department.
Excellent. Good. One other question here about jobs and careers. So what's your advice to young students who are considering studying cybersecurity? Will jobs grow in that area? Is this something they should pursue?
Yeah, well, I love those questions that are about the prediction. If I am a predictor, I would probably be in a different place. But I can tell you that from what we see, the great news is in technology, there is tremendous diversity, and you don't really have to go leave your passion for something that is growing. I believe, and as I mentioned, those statistics are accurate as of today. Today, the world is suffering massive shortage in cybersecurity, massive. We're talking about probably 1 to 3 million potential jobs in cybersecurity today alone. If you're expert, if you're strong, if you're good, you are definitely highly likely to find very strong job. But I'll tell you one caveat, Mohammed. I really believe that computer science in general and your ability to program, whether that is on machine learning, artificial intelligence, or your ability to program in general, is really going to open the world of possibility for you. And as I mentioned, all the areas and all the different elements that I discussed, all of them have tremendous opportunity. But as of today, if I was to guess, I'll tell you, yes, cybersecurity probably will remain to be the most important field in the industry.
I'm like you. I believe that having foundational computer science opens up a lot of doors. So I definitely say build the foundation and go into cybersecurity afterwards. A question on AI. So the trust in AI and the hope that it will do great things for us. What if AI itself got hacked? Will you trust the outcome from an AI engine or analysis?
So there is a lot of talk about AI, and I don't know if you know this or not, Mohammed, but I recently published a book in 2019. The book is called The Digital Disruption, and actually, funny enough, I published it just right before the pandemic hit. I do have quite a few, I would say, segments around artificial intelligence. So what if AI gets hacked? Is AI immune to hacking? No, AI is not immune to hacking. AI, at the end of the day, it's a computer system. Could it be hacked? Yeah, absolutely, it can be hacked. And therefore, it's all going to be dependent on how do we design and architect and build our systems. Would you trust the outcome of AI? Well, even before hacking, a lot of people are very skeptic about the AI itself and its ability to think on its own, because for those in the computer science field, I just want to tell you, and just if you forget about everything else, just remember this point that I want to make is the difference between AI and the traditional computer science programming is AI is actually evolving and building capability to learn and develop on its own. A computer science program has always predictable outcome. AI program do not have predictable outcome. And also, a computer science program today and 1 year later are the same. AI program today and 1 year later are not the same. And therefore, people are already hesitant and skeptical about the outcome of AI without hacking. Now, when you couple that with hacking is an issue. However, the world is not all that bad. The reason I choose to always talk from the positive sense, because I really believe if we manage to get more good people to join us to really drive those systems, we will prevail.
Excellent. I hope so too. Let's see what other questions we have here. Definitely a question on social media. So social media is influencing trust. News are sometimes truthful, sometimes fake. That's also going to contribute into the vulnerability of humans. Is there a way, will AI help make news more trustworthy?
Yeah, well, so AI is just like any, I would say, other trend within the field, right? Call it trend or call it, computer science field or what have you. I think AI, without a doubt, is going to contribute to the solution, but at the same time, AI is contributing to the problem because today, beyond the social media and beyond the fake news, as they call it, right? This is now a terminology is being used all over the place. Now we are talking about deep fake, right? So even that sometimes you might be looking at a video with a person, you really don't know how much to trust or how much not to trust. I'll tell you that I fundamentally believe that the technology is going to provide us with both capability. And it's really up to us what we make out of it. I look at blockchain as one of the solutions that going to address that, because the trust capability that we can build in terms of an element, whether it's a picture or a statement or a video, and being able to really track the authenticity of that piece of information across its entire life cycle, I think that can be controlled. Now, to answer the question, I don't have an answer, but I fundamentally believe that AI will contribute to both ideas, and it's really up to us in the field to really jump and really move and push to really, tip the scale towards us, the good people, that we are contributing to the solution and not to the problem.
Indeed, absolutely. There's one more question here, I guess, about devices such as Alexa, things that control your home, and they integrate and interfere with a lot more information. Again, we're inserting something in the middle of our day-to-day life that is connecting to more devices, vulnerabilities, and your thoughts on that. I think it's the same kind of the spirit of the first question we asked.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for that question, and thanks to the person who asked that question, because that question really opens the point of privacy, right? Today, if you look at what's happening in the industry, I'm not, just to not get in trouble, I'm not going to name any applications, I'm not going to name any social media sites and or apps, but I'll tell you, the privacy we as human are going to be facing probably the biggest challenge of our lifetime is how do we deal with privacy? Whether we talk, and I'm going to only name Alexa because it was mentioned in the question, whether we talk about Alexa or any likes, whether we talk about social media or any device, we are really talking a fundamental concept that all of us collectively need to look at. We at Cisco take privacy extremely, extremely seriously. And therefore, we have created trust centers for every single thing that we have delivered, right? So from our perspective, because we're really leading by examples in the industry. So I want to put Cisco aside and now go back to the actual question. I'll tell you, it's going to be up to us to really push the giants in the industry to make sure that privacy is put first before business gains. Again, whether we talk about the device that was named or any other app, I honestly, if you were to ask me about the biggest worry I have, about technology is really the invasion of privacy at every level. Today, if you were to just walk for 5 minutes in the street, likelihood that you're being captured on camera is extremely high, whether that camera is private or public. If you use a device, likelihood that you are being monitored or you are being watched or the data being collected is extremely high. And therefore, we really owe it to ourselves to take privacy concerns extremely seriously. And again, I probably would give similar advice, which is, be vigilant, be aware. We really need to start developing our own knowledge about the privacy and how to deal with those elements.
By the same token, a question just popped in here. Mobile applications on your phone. How do we know it's secure, especially when it keeps asking you for permissions to read your contacts and collect information about you?
To be honest with you, I personally use a lot of application, just like everyone else on the call today. And I'll tell you, I deal with all those applications with high suspicion. It's very unfortunate that it requires a lot of expertise today to deal with that. And actually, if I was to predict, I tell you, this is a huge opportunity for those entrepreneurs and those students on the call today to start into that. I will tell you, if I find an application today that's going to help with all the apps that I'm using, I will pay monthly subscription for that. Guaranteed, right? I will be the first subscriber. I will be the first supporter. And I'll tell you, this is a huge area right now, is growing. And I can tell you from my knowledge, I believe there are a lot of entrepreneurs and startups that are looking into this area because this is going to be big. I don't know that we are going to be able to handle it on individual basis, but I really believe that collectively we can. And here's an opportunity and an invitation for those innovators to start looking into this.
Great advice, and welcome the entrepreneurs in the crowd. Come join us and let's do something great. Usama, that brings us to the end of the questions in the Q&A. I want to thank you one more time for being a partner with KAUST for a long time. I appreciate everything you guys have done with us, and we look forward to working with you again.
Absolutely, my great pleasure, Mohammed. Thank you so much, and thanks to the entire team and the facilitator. Really appreciate it. It was an honor and a pleasure to be with you all here today and talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.